Pleasure to announce the Shockwave Symposium, Intravascular Lithotripsy. Jos van den Berg and August Isa, you gonna animate or reanimate us about the cracking the barriers of below-the-knee disease. Please go on.
Yeah, thank you very much, Koen. I was asked to moderate this session, so you and Eric actually can take a bio break or whatever you want to do in the meantime.
Fantastic.
Because you have been working so hard since this morning, 9 o'clock already. So it's my pleasure now to introduce August Isa from Spain. He will talk about the use of Shockwave IVL in below-the-knee disease, and very curious about your
Thank you, Josh. Okay, guys, so this is the question. What can IVL do for you? And it's easy to answer because IVL can treat superficial anticalcium, and in BTK, medial arterial calcification. It allows you to perform an angioplasty, very gentle pressure, which basically changes the compliance of the vessel, but also decrease the rate of dissection because this doesn't overstretch the vessel and decrease the rate of or the need of velar stenting. But also really important for us, it's like super safe maneuver because we have more or less than 0% distal embolization. But another important feature is that if you have crossed subintimally a long occlusion, this doesn't prevent just to use this device because you can use either intraluminal or subintimally compared with any other atherectomy device. But when it comes to BTK, if you ask me when do you use IVL, I would say that probably if I ask you, the majority of you probably think what I do in BTK vessels is just to inflate, to blow up a balloon, and pray. Pray not to have a dissection, a recall, or a residual stenosis. And some of you may argue that, okay, we can deal with stents, level 1 evidence, yes, but for short proximal lesions, because let's be clear, scaffolding is an unrealistic option for long BTK CTOs. But for this, you can use the new E8 catheter. We're talking about a catheter, longer catheter, 8 centimeters, with 400 pulses, which allows you to treat 36 centimeters, the entire length of lesions, like in this case, where we treated the medial, the distal, posterior tibial, and the proximal with the same balloon, 3 millimeters balloon. What about BTK bifurcations? For me, this is the best indication. Because, yeah, you can do these sort of fancy things, but why not just to keep it simple? Simple is sexy. So just balloon it, like in this case, we had a flash occlusion of the posterior tibial artery, we balloon it, and as you can see, residual stenosis following the PTA, but instead of T-crushing, culoting it, why not just do shockwave in it? As you can see, following the shockwave, amazing luminal gain. And this is the typical condition in BTK treatment, poor runoff. So we deal with heavily calcified vessels with really crappy runoff. And this entails basically that this decreases the compliance and also decreases the patency rates. Whilst if you change the compliance of the vessel, you have a sort of bypass-like effect. So a high compliance for those who are vascular surgeons, you know all of these bypasses, distal bypasses, that remain patent regardless of having a really poor runoff. And for me, this is somehow the same strategy. But also, if we think about poor runoff, some sort of atherectomy devices in a single vessel runoff can cause this sort of damage. And for that reason, I prefer just to keep on the safe side. And you may probably ask me, August, how far away can you go with your IVL strategy? Up to the end. You can treat the plantar arch with your E8 catheter because it has increased trackability and also crossability. There's a new taper tip and also an hydrophilic coating. But you can also use it in exotic indications, like in this case, where we perform a DVA using our BAS maneuver. And as you can see, if you balloon the connection between the artery and a heavily calcified artery with the vein, you usually get that sort of results, because we are not just ballooning a plaque from inside the vessel, we're just putting a hole in a stiff, rocky wall. And for this, definitely, IVL can save your day, and look at the final outcome following our IVL thing. But let me jump to a case. We're talking about this 72-year-old guy with these necrotic toes on the left foot. And as you can see on the angio, we have a FemPOB patent segment, a chunk of calcium P1, an occlusion in P3, and distal runoff was like posterior tibial artery with chunks of calcium occluded, common plantar, and something at the level of the foot. Look at the extreme calcification of the vessels. This is definitely a SATMAC 4-5. So, in this case, we cross the P1 and P2 treatment, and then we attack the P3 with a CTO wire. As you can see, we were lucky just to cross. We shockwave it with a 6 millimeters balloon, also proximally. On the angio, we had the residual stenosis, and since we were concerned about this chunk of calcium, we decided just to scaffold it. But let's be clear, nobody can think that you can get this sort of outcome even using the best dedicated stem for calcification if you don't prep the vessel properly. So what about the distal strategy? So let me ask you guys, how many of you will go for the posterior tibial artery? One hand. Arterial tibial artery, 2 hands. You are super involved in the session, right? Peroneal artery, thumbs up. OK, DBA lovers, honey, the fancy thing. OK. Well, let me tell you that we decided to go for the posterior tibial artery. We crossed it quite pretty nicely because it was patent, and at the level of the plantar, we struggled a little bit more, but we managed just to cross and to lodge the wire in the medial plantar artery. And as you can see, here we are. We balloon the whole thing with 2 millimeters balloon distal. And following that, this is the angio. We had an increased perfusion on the rear foot, nothing really amazing on the forefoot. And also, we performed some dilation on the posterior tibial artery. But let me remind you that we were dealing with necrotic toes, so you know that we are lovers of the Wundersammt concept. Are you also lovers? Yes, one hand. Oh, 2 hands for no? OK, I'm also a lover. So we decided just to cross from the anterior tibial artery. And as you can see, the takeoff was an anatomical variation. We got into the anterior tibial. We reached the occlusion. We escalate our wire. This is a CTO wire. This is a Halbert wire. But we could not cross. So in these sort of cases, following the advice of Erwin, we just went to the retrograde axis. And then with the retrograde axis, we were able to cross quite aggressively in a subintimal manner up to the proximal aspect of the anterior tibial artery. But this was enough to open the gate for the anterior wire, and the anterior wire jumped into the subintimal space. And as you can see, it just went down pretty nicely, but we were unable to re-enter. So that's sort of at that stage, what we usually do is just to do some card maneuver. We blow up a balloon to break the lamella, and then you see that eventually we were able to cross. But the next hurdle was waiting for us, because we removed the retrograde axis, and the anterior balloon wasn't able to cross. Whoa. What to do? So how many of you would just give up? One vessel was not that bad. No? Any sort of exotic maneuvers? You know, I work with Marta Lobato. She's a lover of exotic things. No? Let me tell you that for this sort of situation, the javelin catheter might be the answer. When the wire crosses, but nothing else follows. If you are not skilled enough to perform exotic things, go for a javelin. Have your javelin on the shelf. But let me tell you that we didn't have a javelin, and I had Marta next to me. So this is what we did. We performed a retrograde axis, again, following the arterial calcification, and we performed a sexy thing, which is the telespheric thing. We rendezvous within the needle itself, and we externalized the wire. And once we were there, we tied up a torque device, and we pull. This is extreme bad for maneuver, but it's super effective. Look at the balloon progressing like a batter. And then once we were able to progress with the balloon, what else? Predilation, 2 millimeters balloon, and then we decided to shockwave the whole thing. Subintimal, yeah. But Shockwave works subintimal as well. So E8, 3 millimeters for the entire length, 36 centimeters. And as you can see, following this, we perform some dilation with an ultra-non-compliant balloon proximally. So we needed just to reach the foot. We perform a body wire maneuver. We reach the DP artery. We cut into the plantar arch. And as you can see, AP view, very important. Lorenzo Patrone would say, where is the AP view? Here we are. So pre-dilation, 2 millimeters, and final dilation with 2.5. And this is the final outcome. Beautiful breeze flow all over the anterior tibial and the posterior tibial. And if you have these sort of outcomes, Wenderson-based concept, you will have this clinical outcome. We perform a TMA, 3 weeks later, complete good healing, and DP pulse, and TCP2 raised up to 64 millimeters of mercury. So in conclusion, calcium poses real challenges in endovascular treatment, especially in these scenarios where basically scaffolding is not a realistic option. IVL is safe and feasible for the BTK strategy. And as you have seen, the new E8 has improved the trackability. You can reach the plantar arch and also allows you to treat longer lesions. And with this, I finish.
So can you tell us a little bit more about your algorithm when you start to decide to use IVL? I think you have the same problems as everybody has with the costs. You probably want to use it in everybody, but...
Yeah, you're right. Well, the thing is, like, we always say that nowadays, all of this fancy stuff is like when you're planning a wedding, everything costs $2,000. Yeah. So if you think about a thoracotomy, any sort of dedicated balloons, or you think IVL, it's almost $2,000. But the thing is, like, if you split all of the investment, not just in the treatment, but also in the outcomes, we're talking about, we have not talked about this, but we have already the outcomes of the DISRUPT-2 trial for BTK 1 year. So if you think that you can achieve at 80% patency rate 1 year, we're talking about like SFA treatment. It's like amazing performance, 65% patency, 90% free of amputation. So like, this is a good investment rather than just to balloon and then retreat. Remember, if you just perform POBA, 70% re-stenosis in 3 months. So if you need to retreat the patient, this is more expensive than to invest in a proper treatment.
Yeah. I think it was good to mention the DISRUPT BTK2 trial that actually showed the patency rates and the freedom from TLR that you mentioned. Over 85% in the CLTI cohort, and that was a significant, a relatively large study, a registry, no randomized data, but still this looks very good and very, very promising. And I think you showed the E8. We had some issues with the previous devices, with unequal energy distribution. With the E8, you have a homogeneous energy distribution along the entire length, but how are you going to decide how to deliver your energy? So you have 400 pulses, you need to treat 36 centimeters, or you can treat 36 centimeters. That means...
Our policy, generally speaking, is at least 2 cycles for every 8 centimeters. And if I have remaining pulses, I'm not the sort of guy that says, okay, we're done. I just use all of the pulses and try to focalize where the plaque is like stiffer or stubborn. A nice feature, we have not mentioned this about this. You may probably think like, well, but you may probably need pre-dilation because this is not navigating well, or you need post-dilation. Well, this is not the case. Again, in the BTK DISRUPT-2 trial, 70% of the cases never needed any sort of pre-dilation. 70% of the cases never needed any sort of post-dilation. So it's like, done.
Okay. Thank you very much, August. Impressive cases as always. I hope you took advantage of the bio break, Eric and Koen. And take it off.